Hey guys, wow, you're just driving. That's it. A weekday morning, slightly overcast, the kind of sky that can't decide if it wants to drizzle or break open with sunlight. Your coffee's gone lukewarm, the kids are dropped off, and you're 5 minutes late to clock in. Your car's clean, insurance paid, license valid. You pass the county line outside Charlottesville, Virginia, and the lights flash behind you. Blue, red, blinding. Then comes the moment you never forget. 3 unmarked black SUVs surrounding your Honda Civic like a trap snapping shut. Men with tactical vests yell over bullhorns. Guns are drawn. You see your reflection in one officer's sunglasses and wonder if this is the last moment of your life. They scream your name, but they say it wrong. You're not who they think you are, but that doesn't matter. Not yet. You're handcuffed on the pavement, your face pressed into gravel. Your wrists scream, your voice breaks, and nobody listens until a call comes through a crackling radio. Wrong person. Cancel detainer. You probably won't survive this story the same way you came in. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. It helps more than you think. And let's go on the journey of today's story together. You sit in a cruiser for 47 minutes. Windows locked. Air off. One ICE agent scrolls TikTok while the other flips through a printed dossier filled with DMV photos. Yours is on page 6. You're not undocumented. You're not even flagged. They matched you using nothing but a last name and a glitchy license plate reader. Your name is Gabriel Rodriguez, born in Roanoke, a U.S. citizen, second generation. But today that doesn't count. Today your skin says everything they need to know. You're released without apology. But your chest still tightens at yellow lights. And your morning coffee? You never finished it. It spilled sideways when they opened your door with a rifle. It starts with a quiet data swap. Nobody notices. You sure didn't. One small agreement between your state's Department of Motor Vehicles and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, gets limited access to license plate scans, registration records, and even facial recognition logs. The press calls it cooperative enforcement. ICE calls it proactive identification. Civil rights lawyers, they call it unconstitutional. In Virginia, especially in counties like Albemarle, Hanover, and Spotsylvania, these data pipelines are now driving ICE's street-level decisions. You see, ICE doesn't always need a judge's warrant to act. Under administrative authority, they can launch targeted enforcement actions based on data alone. Which is ironic because if you tried to open a bank account with this level of verification, you'd be denied instantly. The agency relies heavily on what's called LPR license plate recognition technology, cameras mounted on traffic lights, police cruisers, toll stations. They photograph and catalog millions of plates every day. Combine that with DMV photo databases, public court records, and ICE's own flawed records, and what you get is a hot mess of semi-automated suspicion. That's what happened to people like Luis Sanchez, a janitor from Henrico County. He was driving home from a double shift when ICE agents flagged his car using an outdated detainer request from 2009 meant for a different Luis Sanchez in a different state. Still, they held him for 2 days while the paperwork got sorted. He missed work, lost his job, no charges were filed. According to a 2024 report from the ACLU, ICE has partnered with at least 13 states to access driver data, even in places where immigration enforcement is supposed to be limited. Virginia ranks near the top. ICE agents argue they're targeting repeat violators and public safety threats. But track immigration data reveals a different truth. In 2023 alone, over 2,800 detainers were issued to individuals who turned out to be lawful residents or U.S. citizens. Worse still, the system is getting faster. ICE announced last year the expansion of its Data Integrity Initiative, integrating AI-assisted matching across border states. But what if the AI gets it wrong? What if it doesn't care about due process? Because here's the chilling part. No judge ever signed off on your stop, and nobody, not your DMV, not ICE, ever warned you this could happen. Maria Lopez doesn't cry easily. She's been a daycare worker in Stafford County for 11 years, wiping tears, noses, and scraped knees day in and day out. She keeps stickers in her purse for kids who behave and hot coffee in a thermos that never leaks. She's legal, she's stable, she's invisible. Or at least she thought she was. That Wednesday morning, she's driving her silver Toyota Corolla down Route 1. It's just past 8 a.m. and she's humming to an old bachata song on the radio. She doesn't notice the car tailing her until the flashing lights switch on. Unmarked SUV, dark tint, no siren. Two ICE officers approach. One taps the glass with a knuckle, the other has a hand resting on a holstered weapon. Her hands shake as she lowers the window. She doesn't know why she's being stopped, but she remembers to smile. Polite, careful, unthreatening. "Are you Maria Lopez?" She nods. "You match the profile of someone with an open detainer." Her eyebrows knit together. "I'm a permanent resident," she says quietly. "For 15 years. I work with children. I pay taxes." They say nothing. She's told to step out of the vehicle. She's searched. Her car is checked for passengers. They confiscate her green card and driver's license for verification. She calls her husband, but the call cuts when she's told to sit on the curb and wait. She waits for 92 minutes. Alone, cars pass, neighbors see. Her boss calls, she misses the call. And then, with no explanation, her documents are returned. It was a mismatch, they say. Your license plate flagged a similar name in another county. She isn't charged, she isn't detained, but she isn't the same. That day, she doesn't go to work. That week, she can't sleep. That month, she leaves her job. The school parents are kind, but the rumors start anyway. She was pulled over by ICE. That's all it takes. No arrests, no crimes, just a scarlet letter of silence sealed in fear. And here's the kicker. That open detainer, it belonged to someone with a different middle name, 3 counties over. But the system doesn't care. It never did. You dive into the records because someone has to. Someone needs to make sense of what feels like institutional amnesia. You start with Track Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse because if there's one place ICE can't hide behind spin, it's raw data. And the numbers? They whisper a story louder than the headlines. Between 2021 and 2024, ICE issued over 10,200 detainers that were later retracted. Nearly 2,800 of them were wrongfully applied to people with lawful status. Of those, 612 were U.S. citizens. Let that sit for a moment. 612 Americans were pulled out of cars, workplaces, courtrooms based on data mismatches. That's not a rounding error. That's a system working exactly as designed, just without breaks. You find a leaked ICE operations memo from early 2023, uncovered by the Marshall Project. It describes the rollout of enhanced field verification tactics code for ramping up detainer quotas using DMV partnerships and real-time plate flagging. The agents were encouraged to meet targets. Names were pulled from legacy ICE databases, many of them never updated, still marked with decades-old aliases or incomplete addresses. Cross-reference errors were common, and no external audit was required. Even more jarring, in May 2025, ICE released a press statement celebrating a 100% increase in field interception compliance across 14 non-cooperative jurisdictions. Translation? They were making more stops, even in areas where local law enforcement had distanced themselves from immigration enforcement. The workaround? ICE relied on state-level partnerships and private vendors like Vigilant Solutions and LexisNexis to track down individuals based on housing records, utility bills, even church rosters. And who flags these leads? A mixture of AI and human input. But the AI doesn't understand cultural naming conventions. It can't distinguish a middle name from a maiden name. And it doesn't account for married surnames, transliterations, or mixed language IDs. Maria del Rosario becomes Rosario Maria. Jose Luis becomes just Luis. And you just become suspect. In 2024, Wired ran a profile of an ICE contractor who admitted that many matches were educated guesses, guesswork. That's what now determines who gets detained on a Virginia highway. Now you're stuck at the crossroads of what's legal and what's right. The ICE agent tells you, we had reasonable suspicion. The civil rights lawyer says, it was racial profiling. Your neighbor says, well, if they've done nothing wrong, what's the harm? And that's the boiling pot we're all in, slowly heating, no steam vent. Start with the law. ICE is a federal agency. Under current policy, it doesn't need a warrant signed by a judge to detain someone suspected of being removable. Instead, they use administrative warrants signed by their own officers. The Fourth Amendment? It's sidestepped under the guise of immigration exception clauses, loopholes carved out during decades of border rulings now stretched deep inland. According to Georgetown Law's Center on Privacy and Technology, ICE's reliance on DMV records and plate scanners in non-border zones raises serious constitutional questions. You're not on the border. You're on I-95. Yet the same rules that apply at a port of entry are being used to stop you 2 blocks from a gas station. In July 2025, a bipartisan House subcommittee debated this very issue. One congressman waved photos of ICE officers stopping traffic in Manassas, claiming it was a necessary defense against identity fraud and illegal entry. But a civil liberties advocate testified that 63% of Virginia ICE stops involved no criminal conviction, just matching names or pending investigations. Then there's public perception. One poll from Pew Research shows 41% of Americans support ICE using traffic stops as an enforcement tool, but that drops to 19% when told it could include U.S. citizens. Suddenly, support cracks, sympathy flickers. Because that's the thing, most people are fine with surveillance until they realize it might hit them. ICE's official stance? We follow all federal statutes and prioritize threats to public safety. But when pressed about mistaken detainers or false positives, they offer silence. Or worse, blame the states for poor data entry. So where does that leave you? Stuck in a system that thinks it's moral because it's legal. That claims to be careful, even when it's careless. That insists it's just doing its job, even when it forgets what that job really means. The damage doesn't end when the cuffs come off. That's the part no one prepares you for. There's no hotline for emotional repair. No ICE department for oops, we traumatized your family. No form to file under psychological aftermath. Maria, the daycare worker from Stafford, hasn't driven alone since that morning. She now rides in the passenger seat while her husband navigates even to the corner store. Her 4-year-old son, who watched the officers search her car from his car seat, now cries whenever he sees flashing lights. At nap time, he hides under the table saying, "The men are coming." He doesn't mean monsters. He means ICE. Gabriel Rodriguez, the citizen mistakenly pulled over on his way to work, was diagnosed with panic disorder 3 months after his encounter. He's since lost his job due to attendance issues. His therapist says he exhibits symptoms consistent with racialized trauma: tight chest, shallow breathing, obsessive license plate checking. You think these are isolated? In June 2025, the ACLU documented 47 ICE mistaken identity stops in Virginia alone that led to civil consequences: job loss, missed medical appointments, custody hearings postponed because someone was held for questioning without charges. ICE doesn't track these outcomes. There's no record of how many marriages crack under the weight. No metric for trust broken between parent and child. Then there's the undocumented community watching from the sidelines. They see the same SUVs, they hear the same rumors, and fear spreads like fog creeping into ESL classrooms, laundromats, doctors' offices. When ICE raids began targeting traffic stops, attendance at immigrant resource centers in Richmond dropped by 38%. People stopped coming in to renew documents or get help. Why risk the drive? Even citizens born and raised here begin second-guessing their last names, their accents, their very presence. You see it in grocery lines' eyes darting when uniforms pass. You hear it in playgrounds, parents whispering, "Did you hear about the Lopez girl?" ICE claims their work protects American communities. But who protects the community from the collateral they leave behind? You're told this is how it has to be, that ICE is just doing its job. But you can't help but ask, when did we agree that this was the job? You think back to your civics class. You were taught about due process, equal protection, checks and balances. You remember thinking the Constitution was a kind of shield, imperfect but firm. Now it feels more like a suggestion, a theory that crumbles under red and blue lights. In America, identity was supposed to mean something, but if your face, your accent, or the rhythm of your name makes you a target, what does citizenship even protect? You begin to wonder, are you more American before the traffic stop, or after you're released, with a bruise on your cheek and a whisper of an apology? There's a quiet injustice in having to prove you belong every time you step outside, to carry your documents like armor. To teach your kids the difference between local police and ICE and hope they remember it when their heart is racing. To memorize what to say when stopped. Am I free to go? Am I being detained? You shouldn't need a script to survive a traffic stop. And the agents? Some are tired, jaded, caught between quotas and ethics. An ex-ICE officer anonymously interviewed by The Independent in June 2025 admitted, "We make mistakes, but no one upstairs wants to hear it. It's about numbers, not nuance." So what is justice now? Is it checking off a box labeled national security, even if it breaks a family? Is it letting the gears of the machine grind a little faster if it means a few extra headlines about safety? You think maybe the real debate isn't about immigration at all. It's about power. Who has the right to stop you? Who has the power to erase your dignity and walk away untouched? And most painfully, who we let get away with it just because they're wearing a badge. So what do you do now, knowing this? What do you do when the sirens are silent but still echo in your head? You act, but not out of vengeance, not out of rage. You act because silence is complicity. Start by sharing these stories. Don't just click like. Talk about them at your dinner table. Ask your city council what your DMV shares with ICE. Demand transparency. Because if data can destroy someone's life in 40 seconds, it can also protect them if we're the ones watching. Organizations like the ACLU, NIOC, and Just Futures Law have tools for tracking ICE surveillance in your county. Use them. Know your rights. Print them out. Carry them with you. Because ICE isn't going away quietly, and they're counting on your ignorance. You vote. Locally first. Sheriffs, judges, mayors, they all shape enforcement priorities. Support candidates who speak openly about ending unlawful ICE collaboration. Push for sanctuary policies that include data protection. Make sure your DMV isn't selling your face to a federal database built on fear. You check on your neighbors, the ones who don't look like you, the ones who hesitate before answering the door. Because fear isolates, and that's how systems like this thrive. In silence, in the shadows, in confusion. Even online, you resist. You don't repost memes that dehumanize migrants. You don't laugh at videos of people being tackled during stops. That pain is real. And if your freedom depends on someone else's suffering, is it really freedom? Most of all, you remember that names matter. Gabriel Rodriguez, Maria Lopez, Luis Sanchez. They're not statistics. They are your coworkers, your baristas, your children's teachers. And in a different era, they'd be your ancestors too. This story doesn't end with a courtroom verdict or a viral video. It ends with you. Because this isn't just about ICE. It's about what kind of country we want to live in and what kind of people we want to be when no one's looking. So speak up, speak loudly, and never stop demanding more. You exhale slowly now. The road is quiet again. The traffic lights blink in the distance, amber and forgiving. There's no SUV behind you this time. No orders shouted through glass, no badge pressed into your palm, but your hands still tremble. The fear doesn't leave overnight. It lingers in your bones, in the way you hesitate before reaching for your ID, in the glance you give your rearview mirror just a second too long. But tonight, maybe, you'll rest easier, because now you see it. You name it. You're no longer pretending it's not there. Someone will watch this video tomorrow in silence, headphones in, lights off. Maybe they've lived it. Maybe they're just now realizing how close it gets. But for those few minutes, they won't feel alone. And that's how it starts change. Not with laws, but with voices. So when you step out tomorrow, shoulders square and head high, remember what happened here. Remember Maria's hands shaking, Gabriel's spilled coffee, the badge that blinked like a warning, and the system that blinked back with indifference. But you didn't blink. You watched. And maybe that's what justice is. Not a gavel, not a headline, not even an apology, just someone paying attention.